elaborate to the jury what you mean by no evidence of...
Oh my god! Another witness flipped by the defense! No way, they just flipped Scordibello.
Is it correct that that injury had to occur in some manner other than falling backwards and hitting one's head?
Yes.
And is that injury consistent or inconsistent with a punch?
Could be consistent.
Oh! Now we have a doctor, the medical examiner that performed the autopsy on John O'Keefe, saying that laceration on the eye could have been caused by a punch, a fist, a fight. Wow!
Do you know whether there are other alternative reasons how his body could reach the temperature of 80 degrees?
People can become hypothermic for other reasons such as sepsis, but in this particular case, I didn't have any reason to believe that that was part of the circumstances.
Is it correct that you, in your autopsy report, did not determine the cause of those wounds to Mr. O'Keefe's right arm?
Dog bite.
Correct.
Dog scratch. Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to Buckle Up, It's the Law. Folks, today we are going to continue with the autopsy expert, Dr. Irini Scordibello. We are almost fully caught up. Of course, this is being premiered on Tuesday. It feels like a Monday because of the long weekend. Tuesday, May 27th, 2025, and it's going to premiere on the same day. Dr. Irini Scordibello did the autopsy of John O'Keefe, and she was accompanied by a couple of officers. And if you watch the video from earlier today, Andre Porto, the DNA analyst, in the very beginning, there was a little bit of a tidbit as to who was present during the autopsy. Brennan kind of covers that. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out. And we, like I said, we are almost fully caught up. We have a couple more witnesses, or I shouldn't say a couple more witnesses, because we're going to have a video with like 3 different witnesses, as we're gonna scrunch them all together. But essentially, we are 1 day behind maximum. So you guys are going to get fresh content on the daily starting now, and you are going to get really recent stuff, because I'm finally caught up. This long weekend has allowed me to catch up to all the witnesses from the trial, so thank you for that, Bev. I think she's been personally looking out for me. She saw that the DUI guy was a little bit behind, so she's like, okay, I'm gonna give you some extra time. Also, don't forget, coming up very shortly on this channel, you're going to start seeing some content about the Diddy trial, and it's going to be behind a paywall. The reason for that is most people don't want me to cover Diddy, so I said, okay, you want Diddy, you can have it. 99 cents is the basic package. You can always go higher if you wish, but that is the terms and conditions to watch the Diddy content, because you guys didn't want it, but some of you do. Exclusivity is going to be king in this regard. So, without further ado, I bring you Dr. Irini Scordibello in trial number 2 of Commonwealth of Massachusetts versus Karen Reed in May 2025.
Based on the information that was presented to you as part of your examination and analysis, is it correct that you presume that because Mr. O'Keefe's body was found in the snow and his body temperature was 80 degrees, that he died from hypothermia as one of the causes?
I reached that conclusion after performing the autopsy and after seeing some findings that were consistent with hypothermia, and then combined with the information that was provided to me about Mr. O'Keefe's body being found in the snow, I came to the conclusion that was one of the things that contributed.
Did you consider whether there may have been other reasons as to why his body reached that temperature of 80 degrees? Sort of applying the scientific method and seeing if there were other reasons?
Other than being out in the snow? No, I did not.
Do you know whether there are other alternative reasons how his body could reach the temperature of 80 degrees?
People can become hypothermic for other reasons, such as sepsis. But in this particular case, I didn't have any reason to believe that that was part of the circumstances.
Why does she keep closing her eyes like that? I don't like that at
You're
all.
familiar with the medical phrase differential diagnosis, correct?
Yes.
And a differential diagnosis is a term that's used by doctors to pursue other potential causes of a medical injury. Is that a fair general statement?
Yes.
So, for example, if somebody is having difficulty breathing, a doctor may say, I think it's the heart is their primary hypothesis, but they may want to differentially diagnose this and look at the lungs. Is that an example of a differential diagnosis let's look at the lungs to see if that may be the problem? Is that a good, fair example?
In the example you're giving, yes.
So applying that concept, and do you believe the concept of, applying that concept to this situation, did you perform a differential diagnosis as to the cause of the death and question whether there was hypothermia as any cause of the death of the decedent? Did you make that analysis?
I looked at the anatomic findings that I had at the time of autopsy, the information that was provided to me based on the circumstances and where the body was found, and I came to the conclusion that there were hypothermic changes in Mr. O'Keefe's body.
How long to die in the cold? And by the way, folks, if I ever die, please don't let me be cut open by this woman. Dear Mother of God.
So you just used the phrase hypothermic changes. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes.
Can there be hypothermic changes without a cause of death being hypothermia?
Yes, of course.
So you can have signs in the body of hypothermia, but you can also conclude that a cause of death is not from hypothermia, correct?
If the person is deceased and I am examining the body and there are multiple things that I believe contribute to the death, then I tend to include all of them. Meaning that if this was a drug intoxication,
Blunt force trauma to the
and
head.
the body also showed signs of hypothermia, I would include both of them on the death certificate, because there is no scientific way of teasing out whether it was just one or the other or both. In this particular case, I had two processes that were going on. One was the head trauma,
Aha!
and the other one were these hypothermic changes. I put all that together, and again, included or took into account the investigative information of where the body was found, what the temperature was when the body was found, whether the person was still alive or not, and I came to the conclusion that the cause of death was blunt impact injuries of head, and I included the hypothermia because I saw during the autopsy that there were changes consistent with hypothermia.
Notice how defensive she's getting, because she knows where Alessi is going. Alessi is about to cream this woman. For real. Check this out. Alessi is setting the stage to show that there could have been the cause of death as a result of the blunt force trauma to the head. You assumed it was hypothermia, but you just admitted that there is no medical way of determining which one was the one that caused the death, unless you had eyes on the deceased before he was dying, or before he was dead, as he was dying, and then you can determine oh, it looks like this was the cause of death. And even that would be difficult, I think, because I'm not a doctor, I'm just a lawyer. This woman is about to be torn to pieces, folks, and I am here for it. Let's continue.
So I want to break that down a little bit, if I could, with you. So you testified on direct, and I think you alluded to it here, that the primary cause of death, use that phraseology on direct, was blunt force injury. Is that correct?
Blunt impact injuries to the head, yes.
Blunt impact injuries to the head. And that's the primary cause, right?
Correct.
And then there's, and I'm not clear on what you referred to on direct as a secondary cause of death of hypothermia, but you used a little different phrase in some of your answers, and I want to make sure I got it right. Hypothermic considerations, can you repeat what it was?
They said have hypothermic changes.
Hypothermic changes, and we agree that you can have hypothermic changes without a conclusion of hypothermia, correct?
No, hypothermic changes are what I'm referring to are actual things that I can see in the organs that are consistent with hypothermia. They're anatomic findings. They're things I can see with my eyes.
So you can, I'm sorry, did you finish?
And those changes suggest and are consistent with someone being hypothermic.
As you sit here now, with regard to, you used the phraseology consistent with hypothermia, signs of hypothermia, that's what I want to pursue just a little bit with regard to further information. We got started on this by asking whether you used the concept of differential diagnosis and hypotheses to determine the cause and manner of death. And you said in one of your answers that you relied upon law enforcement information, correct? Is that
Yes.
part of it? It was, you brought that up. You're the one who said you relied upon that, correct?
Yes.
And you've brought that up on your direct testimony and earlier in the cross. Is that correct, that you relied upon the investigation of law enforcement? So,
Sustained.
so now what I'd like to do is to ask you whether, using the concepts of differential diagnosis, scientific method, did you consider whether Mr. O'Keefe could have died somewhere other than where the body was found and been moved and placed in the snow? Did you consider that?
Sustained.
May we approach, Your Honor?
Move along with this, we can approach in a bit.
Oh, shut
Thank
up, Bev.
What, if any, alternative diagnoses did you apply to Mr. O'Keefe?
I don't understand your question.
What alternative scenarios did you look at, if any,
She hasn't. He knows the answer.
for the cause or manner of death of Mr. O'Keefe?
I'll allow that question. What, if any?
At the time of the autopsy, I documented injuries and signs of hypothermia. I was provided with a set of circumstances, and at the end of the investigation, or at the end of my timeline, I concluded on the cause, but I did not conclude
On the
or I did
manner.
not determine
Yes.
a manner.
Oh, yes.
The manner would be the circumstances you are speaking about, whether I considered other causes or circumstances.
Right.
That's not how it works. I don't come up with hypothetical scenarios on how those injuries occur. I try to state the injuries, describe the injuries, state the cause of death and why that person died. And then I use all kinds of other investigative information that is provided to me to determine if I have enough to make a determination on the manner.
Did anyone provide to you any alternatives as to the finding of the body of Mr. O'Keefe in the snow?
Personally, to me, no.
Did you ask for any alternatives
Of course she didn't.
to the nature and location of the injury or death of Mr. O'Keefe?
I asked for all the information that was available.
Understood, but my question is, did you ask for any alternatives
Specifically.
to the information that was provided to you as regards the location of the injuries? Did anyone provide you any alternatives to where the injuries could have occurred?
No.
So,
I'm going to let the answer stand, so the answer is no, so there's no evidence of that. So next question.
so you talked about the information you had at the time. What time is that?
The information at the time was a preliminary police report and verbal communications
And
regarding the circumstances of how Mr. O'Keefe's body was found.
And when I asked about the time, I'm not calendar time. Was this January, February, March, April of 2022?
The preliminary police report was on the day of the autopsy, and then information, I don't remember exactly how long, but in the weeks following, information was, coming in.
How long till you got all the information, Scordibello? Sorry, I had to.
Do you have the ability to amend a death certificate?
Yes, I do.
And you can amend a certificate if you obtain further information with regard to the circumstances surrounding the death. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I'm a very powerful woman. You can tell it's written all over her face.
You're talking about the information you had at the time. And I'm concluding that the latest that would be is April of 2022. Is that correct?
Correct.
Isn't it correct that for hypothermia in the presence of Wisniewski's ulcers or spots, that you have to have a predominance of the stomach covered by the spots for them to be Wisniewski ulcers?
We're about to get really scientific here, folks. Buckle up. Wisniewski ulcers, where are we going with this? This is interesting.
I think there's different levels and different grades.
In hypothermia, particularly death from hypothermia, wouldn't you expect to see a predominance of those ulcers, meaning they take up most of the stomach lining? Isn't that what you would expect to see?
Not always. I have seen that. I have also seen cases with much fewer spots, as you refer to them.
I see. Okay, so basically, since she refused to admit that blunt force trauma to the head could have been the contributing factor to John O'Keefe's death, hypothermia being the secondary factor, she kind of flipped them. Very common in cover-up cases where medical examiners will flip the primary cause of death with the secondary cause of death and making the secondary primary and the primary secondary to make it look like the death happened from something other than what really happened. And they have the easiest cover because there is no degree of medical certainty that you can create that is going to say, no, it's A versus B, you know. So now Alessi is taking something very specific from the medical literature, okay? For those of you, stay with me. This is fascinating. And I'll explain. I'll break it down for you. It's quite complicated, and I will break it down for you all. So essentially, when a human body dies of hypothermia, and pure hypothermia, nothing else, there are going to be certain changes that the body goes through. It's a gradual change, right? So imagine if John O'Keefe truly was, he wasn't even hit by a car. Okay, let's pretend for just a second that John O'Keefe was just so drunk, he just passed out in the cold and accidentally died. Okay, no other injuries. His body would go through a transformation from a living, breathing human being with body temperature slowly dropping all the way to a dangerous threshold, and eventually his heart would stop and he will die. Okay? So during those changes, the body goes through a certain transformation, and these ulcers get created in the stomach, I guess. I'm not, like I said, I'm not a doctor. I don't understand a lot of this medical literature, but this is fairly straightforward. And like I said, breaking it down for you, it basically is these ulcers get created, apparently. They both seem to agree. They disagree as to the degree of how much they appear. So Alessi's saying these ulcers would have appeared if he died purely of hypothermia. Over time, they would appear. But if he had been inside the house, the snot was beat out of him, and he was either on the brink of death or already dead, and then his deceased body or near deceased body dropped out into the snow, you don't have that entire window, right? When he's drunk and falls in the snow and falls asleep, in my hypothetical example, he's out there for 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours before he actually succumbs to the cold and dies. If it only took him like 20, 30 minutes to die, these ulcers would not be created because his cause of death is not hypothermia. Hypothermia was a contributory factor, but it wasn't the primary factor. You see the difference? So now he's talking about these ulcers, hopefully getting her to admit, yes, you should see a lot of them. But she's like, no. Sometimes you can see few. Let's see if Alessi's got any more arrows in his quiver. I'm sure he does.
Isn't the majority of the cases that you have seen where someone has actually died from hypothermia that the ulcers predominate, take up greater than 50% of the stomach?
Yes.
Oh, wow. That's huge.
And what percentage of the, and I'm trying to avoid putting it up again, so what percentage of the gastric mucosa of Mr. O'Keefe would you estimate is taken up by the ulcers that you have identified?
I would say somewhere between 10, 15%.
Wow.
Just 10 and 15%. Thank you.
Wow. That's low.
Now, if we could...
And that is proof, once again, that is proof, maybe not 100% solidified proof, because she just said, I don't know if it's true or not, that sometimes you'll have less. Maybe it's true, I don't know. But the fact that it's not as high as it should be shows that hypothermia is not a contributory factor to John O'Keefe's death, or at least a primary one. And she listed it as the cause of death. That's huge. Very important.
Look to the issue of continuing with hypothermia. Let's go to frostbite.
Oh.
Do you note any evidence of frostbite on the decedent, Mr. O'Keefe?
No, I did not.
Oh.
Do you know what the weather conditions were in Canton, New York on the early morning? I'm sorry, I keep saying Canton, New York. My apologies.
He's from New York, so.
Do you know the weather conditions in Canton, Massachusetts, starting at midnight on January 29, 2022, going through 6 a.m. on January 29, 2022?
It was very cold. There was a blizzard coming.
They called it a nor'easter, right?
Correct.
And when you say very cold, in addition to very cold, do you recall whether there were gusting winds?
I believe so.
And do you understand that when there's a very cold temperature in Fahrenheit and you add gusting winds, that is called, when you apply the two together, that's called wind chill, right?
Correct.
And with wind chill, doesn't the phenomenon of wind chill mean that the wind combined with the temperature brings the actual temperature down, and in addition to bringing it down temperature in a wind chill calculation, it also has a physical effect on the body, correct? Wind chill. Doesn't wind chill also cause greater effects than if there was no wind.
Of course.
Correct.
By the
So-
way, folks, I cannot wait until the jury finally gets to hear Lucky's testimony in this trial, because obviously they have not heard from the defense yet. By the time you guys watch this video, today's testimony has already concluded, but because I'm recording this at 7 o'clock in the morning, I don't know what happened today, obviously, so hi, future Larry. But it seems to me that if the defense is about to start their case, if the Commonwealth already concluded today or they're going to conclude later this week, I heard different accounts. Somebody said Tuesday, somebody said Thursday, and today's Tuesday. So the defense, the minute they put on Lucky, it's going to answer so many questions for the jury that it's like, what was it, 3 o'clock in the morning, and there was a big Ford Escalade or whatever it was blocking right where John O'Keefe's body was found, blocking the area. Like, they're just going to go, they're going to have this, oh, moment. Especially because it's a younger jury. They're going to be skeptical of the government. They're already upset at all the objection sustained, objection sustained, objection sustained, because they're like, but we want to hear this information. We want to hear this answer. Why is it being blocked by the court? Bev really doesn't, like I said, it's either they don't understand what they're doing, they have no choice, or they just gave up. They just gave up. They're like, we got to finish this, but we can't have another mistrial. We have to conclude this. Let's just go for that not guilty. I don't know. I don't know. I can't answer. Or maybe they are going for another mistrial. I don't know. I can't read the room anymore. Brennan is such a sneaky snake. I just don't know what his end game is anymore. But we will find out. We will find out very, very shortly. He's not calling anyone from the house. That is crazy.
In medical terms, the wind synergizes with the temperature and exacerbates the effect on a human.
Correct.
And with a wind chill, isn't it correct that you would have a greater chance of frostbite than if there was no wind chill effect at all?
Yes.
Yes.
So, you saw no signs, no signs of frostbite on Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
At the time of my examination and at the time of autopsy, no, I did not.
Did you see frostbite at any other time with regard to Mr. O'Keefe?
I only examined him at the time of autopsy.
So, at the only time you examined him, which is at the time of autopsy, you had zero signs of frostbite, correct?
Correct.
Dr. Scordibello, now that you have gone through this part of your examination here today, would you like to amend in any way opinions as to whether hypothermia was any cause of the death of Mr. O'Keefe?
No, I don't. I still believe that there were hypothermic signs.
Hypothermic signs, correct?
Yes.
I'd like to move to another topic.
That's huge. He basically got her to admit, despite the fact that she didn't want to, she didn't say he died of hypothermia. There were hypothermic signs. And that is enough for Alessi to show that Huslong to die in the cold was a direct contributor to why he doesn't have frostbite markings and to why hypothermia is not one of the leading causes of death for John O'Keefe. It is just a sign. Hypothermic signs were present, meaning he wasn't out there long enough. Definitely not 6 hours, maybe an hour or two, maximum 3. Because once the body is already deceased, the blood flow stops, and a lot of the things that you would expect to happen are not going to happen. If the body was alive and died as a result of something else, well, then there would be signs of it. Hello? Like those ulcers. They should have dominated his stomach, apparently. And there were only 10 to 15% coverage of those ulcers in the stomach. I think this is enormous. I don't remember if we heard any of this in the first trial. This is huge. Alessi is really bringing his A game with these experts.
You did not include in your autopsy in any fashion any discussion of whether Mr. O'Keefe's injuries were consistent with a motor vehicle accident, did you?
No, I did not.
Oh,
In
he's going to go
fact,
there.
there were no injuries consistent with a motor vehicle impact on Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
Sustained.
Why?
Did you evaluate it all in your autopsy whether Mr. O'Keefe had any injuries consistent with a motor vehicle accident?
I'll allow that.
Yes, I did examine his lower extremities. That is protocol in any case of suspected impact with a motor vehicle. So I did examine his legs, and I did not see any evidence. Of
Oh!
And could you elaborate to the jury what you mean by no evidence of
Oh my
any
God!
site?
Another witness flipped by the defense. No way! They just flipped Scordibello.
I'm going to sustain that objection.
What do you mean in your answer, no evidence of impact injuries?
I'll allow that.
What I look for is some sort of bruise, either on the outside of the leg or bleeding on the inside after the skin is reflected in the soft tissues, or any fracture of the bones of the legs. I did not observe those things.
That was going to be my question. You did not observe any of those things, correct?
Correct.
Bam. Flipped. Oh, wow. Let the jury absorb. Oh, he's doing it brilliantly. Look at that long silence. That is not an accidental silence. That is an intentional silence because that is a crucial piece to the defense's case and the inability of the prosecution to prove that he died as a result of a motor vehicle. This is a doctor, a medical examiner. Now, as much as I don't like her, there are certain facts that she cannot escape from. And that is what Alessi just stated. And look at that long, pregnant pause. The jury is just eating it up like, wait a minute. No impact? No evidence of any impact? This is a doctor. And they're going to hear it again from the defense's expert. So it's going to re-solidify that notion. No broken bones, no fractures. Remember, Ms. Little did that in the first trial with in their case in chief, which is coming either this week or next week. I
I'd like
love
to
this.
turn to, please,
Oh, so good.
the face of the decedent in your analysis that you discussed on direct examination of that area of the decedent. You talked about ecchymosis, you recall that?
Yes.
In medical literature, there's a synonym for ecchymosis. It's sometimes referred to as raccoon eyes. Is that correct? Ecchymosis doesn't cause a laceration to an eyelid, does it?
No.
Ecchymosis does not cause a laceration to a nose, does it?
There was an abrasion on the nose, but no, the answer is no.
Correct. So ecchymosis doesn't cause a laceration to the nose, correct?
Correct.
Inconsistencies.
Did your report at all evaluate whether there was any significance of the laceration to the eyelid that you spoke about in your direct testimony?
What do you mean?
Other than just noting that there was a laceration to the eyelid, did your report at all evaluate the potential significance, if any, of that laceration to the eyelid?
I noted it and photographed it, and it was part of the totality of the blunt impact injuries that I noted on both the face and the head.
Do you believe that the laceration to the eyelid could be caused by a blunt impact injury?
A laceration, by definition, is a blunt impact injury.
Do you believe the eyelid laceration was caused by a blunt impact injury from falling backwards and hitting one's head?
Not from falling backwards and hitting one's head, but that area at some point came in contact with a blunt object or surface.
Okay, if I can
Like a
follow up on
fist.
that, please. So you agree that if a person falls and hits the back of their head, that they cannot sustain an eyelid injury, is that correct?
Correct.
All right. And if somebody falls backward and hits their head, they can't sustain, from that impact in the back of the head, a laceration to the nose, correct?
Correct.
He looks very pleased.
So if we could, Mr. Wolk, and with Your Honor's permission, publish which is already in evidence, which are depictions. Let's start out with, please, the laceration to the right eyelid. And Dr. Scordibello, is this the laceration to the right eyelid that we've been talking about of Mr. O'Keefe?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And that injury could not be caused by a fall backwards and one hitting their head, correct?
No.
I'm sorry, we'll just need, and then I'm going to repeat the question.
The sirens are back.
Can you state your answer again? Let me that injury to the right eyelid, that laceration, could not be caused by someone falling backwards and hitting their head, correct?
Correct.
Bear with me one moment, Your Honor. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes. Show Mr. Brennan.
Your Honor, I erroneously assumed that that picture was in evidence, and I would like to now properly lay the foundation.
Okay.
Dr. Scordibello, you...
Even Brennan forgot about it.
Can we mark this?
So, Mr. Brennan, are you objecting to that coming into evidence? Okay, so let's just put it in evidence.
165.
Thank you.
Unless they just didn't know it was not in evidence yet. But it's something that would already have been, without any objection, entered.
Yeah, Your Honor.
Yes.
It happens.
Dr. Scordibello, I place before you what is in evidence now is 165. And Your Honor, may I have Mr. Wolk publish
Yes.
165? Thank you, Mr. Wolk. So, Dr. Scordibello, that laceration to the right eyelid could not be caused by a fall backwards where someone hits the back of the head, correct?
Correct.
So that injury, you've called, what do you label that category? Traumatic, did you use that phraseology?
Blunt impact.
Blunt impact. So that's a blunt, in your opinion, that's a blunt impact injury, correct?
Correct.
So is it correct that that injury had to occur in some manner other than falling backwards and hitting one's head?
Yes.
And is that injury consistent or inconsistent with a punch?
I'll allow it.
Could be consistent.
Oh!
If we could, Mr. Wolk, have the laceration to the nose.
Now we have a doctor, the medical examiner that performed the autopsy on John O'Keefe, saying that laceration on the eye could have been caused by a punch, a fist, a fight. Wow! This is the state's
I'm sorry,
doctor.
hold off on a moment. Your Honor, Mr. Brennan has agreed to stipulate that this going to
Okay,
be
so like we can mark it.
166.
Oh, thank you.
By the way, let me take this moment to say, folks, don't forget to like this video, comment below, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell. And if you need a lawyer, 1-844-774-HURT, 1-844-774-HURT. Trial lawyers such as myself are standing by to get you the most money that you deserve, that you can get under the law. Whatever the maximum that is permitted under the law, we can get you. Why? Because insurance companies hate trial lawyers. They are scared of trial lawyers. Why? Not afraid to go to trial. And we know how to get a jury to give you exactly what you deserve. So call us, 1-844-774-HURT, 1-844-774-HURT, 24/7, all 50 states. Back to the video. And if it happened within the last year.
Dr. Scordibello, I have put before you what is in evidence is 166, and Your Honor may, Mr. Wolk, publish.
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Scordibello, does that exhibit fairly and accurately depict the laceration to the nose of Mr. O'Keefe?
Yeah, it's an abrasion. I described it as an abrasion, as a scrape.
So you would classify that as a scrape?
Yes.
That scrape could not be caused by someone falling backwards and hitting the back of their head, could it?
Not by a single event, no.
You can take that down, Mr. Wolf. On your direct testimony, you talked about injuries to the right arm of Mr. O'Keefe. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
And is it correct that you, in your autopsy report, did not determine the cause of those wounds to Mr. O'Keefe's right arm?
Dog bite.
Correct.
Dog scratch.
With your Honor's permission, I would like to...
If there's at least one nurse on that jury, folks, that has actually had experience
Your Honor, Mr. Brennan has agreed to...
with dog bites and dog scratches, they're going to immediately go, that's a dog bite. I've seen it more times than I can count in my comments. Nurses who have seen this kind of injury before.
I'm going to do the same thing if I may, Dr.
We have
Scordibello.
examined
I'm going to leave
patients.
these with you, but I'm also going to, with the court's permission, have them published.
Okay.
Use whatever one best allow you to answer the question. Your Honor, may I have Mr. Wolf publish those two? Thank you. With regard to what is on the screen, am I correct that you noted these injuries to and these wounds to Mr. O'Keefe in your autopsy report?
Yes,
And am I correct that you noted that there was a pattern to those wounds?
correct.
And although you noted there was a pattern to the wounds, you were not able to determine the cause of those pattern wounds. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Because she's protecting them.
Are those injuries consistent with a dog bite?
Based on her answer to the last question, ask something else.
I'm sorry, couldn't hear you.
Ask another question, sustained.
Why?
Can you identify any cause of those injuries that would be consistent with what is depicted on the screen? Objection.
So, can you answer that, Doctor?
I cannot.
So the dog
You
bite
can take
theory
that down,
holds.
Mr. Wolf. Thank you.
The jury heard it. That's all that matters. That's all that matters.
Do you recall discussing at all on your direct examination? Well, let me ask it this way. Did you evaluate at all in your autopsy a gray hoodie sweatshirt of Mr. O'Keefe?
No, I did not.
So, were you aware that there was clothing associated with Mr. O'Keefe when he came as part of the autopsy?
He did not have any clothing that came to us. The clothing was removed at the hospital and was packaged and I believe submitted as evidence.
So the clothing of Mr. O'Keefe, a t-shirt or a hoodie, didn't make its way to you?
No?
You were unable to reach a determination as to the manner of death of Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
That is correct.
So you had doubts about the manner of death of Mr. O'Keefe, and you consider those doubts reasonable?
Sustained.
You had reasonable
You were
doubts.
not able to reach a determination as to the manner of death of Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
Correct.
And manner of death, as you've testified, includes the circumstances surrounding death in addition to the medical analysis that you performed. Okay.
Well, she was nodding already.
Sustaining it, asked and answered.
She was already nodding. The jury saw it. Folks, one more witness for the Commonwealth flipped on a dime and is now a defense witness. This is unprecedented, unbelievable. This is better than the first trial. All the witnesses that Brennan is bringing to the stand are being flipped and turned into defense witnesses. They are helping the defense. They're not helping putting the prosecution's theory forward. They're doing the complete opposite. They are crippling Brennan and Lally's case, and I'm here for it. Folks, I hope you all enjoyed this. I hope you'll learn something. Once again, don't forget to like this video, comment below, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this testimony. How does it help or hurt the defense? How does it help or hurt the prosecution? And I will see you all tomorrow, Wednesday, May 28th, 2025. Bye, everybody.